Okay, welcome to the December 17th meeting of the Probus Club of Burlington, our 7th virtual meeting being held via Zoom since the COVID pandemic started in Ontario. Let there be no doubt that 2020 has been a year filled with unprecedented challenges, but through it all, our Burlington community has come together. In responding to COVID-19 in our Probus Club, we had to figure out a program designed for our members to come together to see and listen to topics of interest. If there's one thing 2020 has reminded us of, is that authentic connection is what makes community. We are in the midst of a most unusual and unprecedented time for ourselves, our families, our communities, and the entire world. As we head into this holiday season, many of us do so with mixed emotions because this holiday, like most everything else in 2020, will be different. While we cannot gather to celebrate in person, and while many of us are zoomed out, let's not downplay the power of personal connection. Remember that other people are the best antidote to the downs of life and the single most reliable up. In that vein, I want to share with you a message from one of our other Probus clubs. It's very easy to forget that we are in the holiday season, a time for giving and caring for others, a time for family and friends, and most important, a time to reflect on our blessings. We are safe, we are fed, we have good water, we have comfortable homes, and we are fortunate to live in Burlington, in Ontario, and in Canada. We live in a country that can purchase millions of vials of vaccines for our citizens. We live in a country with universal healthcare. We live in a country with social support systems for those less fortunate. We have healthcare workers working tirelessly to keep us safe and who will be there on hand to administer vaccines. We have fellow citizens wearing masks, following physical distancing guidelines, standing up to help our neighbors, and sacrificing so much to keep our community safe. And there is hope for a better 2021. Let's not let COVID take our holiday spirit. Continue to focus on our blessings and wish each other season's greetings and a happy new year. For that, we thank the Cambridge Probus Club. Currently, I have not been made aware of any members reported ill, nor any guests for this meeting, but I have a few announcements before we get to our speaker. I'm pleased to inform you that Ken Bauman has accepted and has been appointed by your executive committee as our new first vice president. We are grateful to Ken for being voluntold to be with us. Previously, as a member of the Grimsby Probus Club, Ken served in a number of positions, including that of president. We're fortunate to have him with us, and we thank Ken. Be aware that we are looking for members willing to give of their time to take up positions on our executive team of your club for the new year, starting in February. As we look through the bios of our members, we find a field of members rich with experience and energy. Some of you may receive a call in the new year from our search committee, and I urge each of you to consider seriously how you might give of your time and talents to help guide your club. I also want to remind all of our members that membership fees for 2021 are now due. Your executive committee doesn't foresee conducting in-person meetings for the first half of 2021 at a minimum. Now, with the announcement of a vaccine available in the very near future, we can hopefully anticipate meeting again in person after the summer months. We reviewed our financial condition and projections and determined that the annual membership fees for 2021 will be $20, less than half the normal fee of $45. Such a bargain. You can see that you can renew by sending a check or by convenient e-transfers. If you had had a change of address or any other changes, we would like to hear about it. Simply log onto our Probus website and send an email or phone one of our executive members. The full details are in our newsletter to you of December 2nd. For the members that have already renewed, please accept our thanks for your quick and positive response. We're also promoting and accepting applications for new members. If you have a friend, acquaintance, neighbor, family member of the male gender, please contact our membership committee, our chairman, Bob Dickinson. Bob can again be reached through our website. Connecting someone to become connected is one of our goals in Probus. Remember once again that the power of personal connection. Other people are the best antidotes of the downs of life and the single most reliable up. We also urge you to invite your friends to one of our upcoming meetings as an introduction to our club. You can pass along the link to them, but would like to know their name in advance so that we can recognize them and introduce them to our attendees. For those of you watching the recording of this meeting on our YouTube channel, I wish to advise that some of the music in the speaker's presentation may not appear due to potential matters of copyright. And with that, I'll turn the meeting over to Kevin Harrar to introduce our speaker for today. Kevin, take it away. Unmute yourself.
I have. Hi, everyone. It's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, George Sanford. George, you'll remember, spoke to us in August. At that time, he gave us an inspiring talk about the beauty of summer, sharing wonderful images of that lovely season. This morning, he will regale us with a talk about another enjoyable season, Christmas. But first, a few words about George. He is truly a Renaissance man, without a doubt. Over many years, over a lifetime, in fact, he has amassed a wealth of knowledge in the arts, in music, in painting, in sculpture, theater, literature, architecture, you name it. George knows about it and can talk about it, and very eloquently too. This morning, he will entertain us with a celebration of Christmas in pictures and music inspired by Christmas traditions and the meaning of these traditions in our lives. Before he does that, though, I would like to take the liberty of sharing one particular Christmas tradition my wife recalled from her childhood. She remembers it from the time when she was a young girl in County Cork, Ireland. On Christmas Eve, it was the custom for the family to light a candle and place it in the front window of the house. This was a sign to anyone passing by, anyone who was in need of help or just lonely, that they could knock on the door and they would be invited in, invited to stay and share whatever the family had to offer. The candle in this tradition represented welcome, fóise in Irish. And I gather the candle in the window tradition dates back to the 17th century. And by the way, as you can see, I have my very own Christmas candle shining behind me for this talk. I got to thank my wife, Dorothy, for this. Now over to George to hear more wonderful Christmas traditions.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Very nice. The beautiful introduction. Let me just stop share for a second. I want to make sure all the music is right. Yes, we're in good shape. All right. Technology is a wonderful thing, especially when it works, as you all know. Thank you, Kevin. Well, my talk today, as Kevin has said so eloquently, by the way, Christmas. What is Christmas? I could answer that very simply by saying that Christmas is different for everybody. Doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, how young you are, how old you are. Your Christmas is going to be a little different than everybody else's. And that's wonderful. And in this particular time of the season and with COVID and so forth, I think it's even more important to celebrate the things that you do or your family does that's not like everybody else. Because your unit, your bubble is just that, your bubble. But music is music, a huge component to Christmas time. My goodness. From December 1st to January 2nd, I play Christmas music every single day in my car, in the house, on the television. It's imperative because we'll never hear the music otherwise. And so it's lovely to hear some of the most beautiful music written by a lot of great, great composers. Icons. Christmas is icons. Think of all the images that exist that represent Christmas and winter. We have to remember that Christmas time occurs during winter. So those two things could be celebrated in many, many ways. The images of Christmas, and there are lots of those. And for some people, they're different than the person next door. Again, celebrate those images. Food. Well, that goes without saying. The word diet doesn't exist in Christmas food, not at all. One little cookie, one piece of chocolate, an extra little bit of sherry, what the heck? I mean, come January, do whatever you like, go back to your veggies and dip, but in Christmas time, the food is so amazing, and it takes so long to cook it and so long to make it that why not enjoy it? It's one of the few pleasures we have in life that doesn't really put us out very much. Community. A Probus is a great example of community. You all are together. You're sharing a common idea. And community, again, is so important in the age in which we live right now. Sure, we can't be cheek and jowl and shoulder to shoulder, but hey, we have computers, we have phones, we can communicate with anybody we want to communicate with. We just have to go and do it. Belief. Christmas is all about belief. What do you believe Christmas is? And not everybody has the same belief system. Some people believe there's a Santa Claus. Some people think there's not. Some people think there was a little baby born in the Middle East. Some people think there wasn't. So whatever your belief system is, that's fantastic for you. And then that also makes you unique and different. Family, as I've already said, is so important. And especially now when we are a distance from one another, we can't get ourselves all together, gather 20 people around the turkey or whatever. No, my answer to that for this season is simple. Let's not have an empty place setting for this time next year. That's the best present we can give in the present. Presents. Talk about presents. We can't have Christmas without presents. So even if you go out and buy yourself one, wrap it up and open it Christmas morning and go, oh, wow, it's what I've always wanted. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter the size of your tree. Doesn't matter where you are. Give yourself a present. And right now, the best present you could give yourself is keep breathing. And finally, movies. Wow, all those Christmas movies, Your Good Man, Charlie Brown, and A Wonderful Life, and so on and so on and so forth. Again, like the music occurring in this month to enable us to remind ourselves of our childhood, what we did when we were younger, gathering around the old black and white, 17 and a half centimeter television, or listening to the Queen's message, my husband and I, and so on and so forth. So all of these things, and there's a whole lot more, of course, represent the concept of Christmas. So let us begin with our first piece of music. Enjoy. I'm sure you can sing along if you want.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go. a look at the 5 and 10. It's glistening once again with candy canes and silver lanes that glow. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Toys in every store, but the prettiest sight to see is the holly that will be on your own front door.
How about that? It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. And when we woke up this morning, it certainly looked that way outside, didn't it? A little bit of white all over the place. And that, of course, is a huge component of what Christmas is all about. And Christmas is all about a lot of different things, as I said before, to different people. So some of those icons, what are they? Well, let's listen to this, one of these gorgeous icons. In the bleak midwinter. What a beautiful piece of music. Words are by Christina Rossetti, the sister of the great pre-Raphaelite Dante Rossetti, and the music by Gustav Holst, the great British composer. In the bleak midwinter. The last line of that particular carol is quite delightful, and it says, "All I have to give is my heart." And if you think about it today and the age we're in, let everybody in your family know that your heart bursts with the fact that they exist. And again, in the present, you're the best present. So now, a Christmas tree. Oh my goodness, in the middle of a forest where nothing else is lit. Key component of Christmas and this time of year is all about light. If we go back 120,000 years ago, and you're inside a cave, and the trees have no leaves, and the grass is brown, and even the animals seems to have laughed, you're thinking maybe that big round thing in the sky called the sun, it may never come back. And so you're going to do things that are going to hopefully encourage the sun to return. By the way, S-O-N and S-U-N. It's not by accident. The words are very close together and sound the same. But in ancient times, they wanted light to return so that things would grow again. So that's one of the reasons we put lights on a Christmas tree, is that to celebrate light, that we want light to come back. Some tribes would light bonfires. Some people, let me just go forward a bit and then we'll go back. Some people would do this. They'd put a candle in a window. You just heard from Kevin how important that was to the Irish, and probably still is. What a lovely tradition. Or you could be Jewish and you would put a menorah in the window. All of these are celebrating the idea of light. Now, there's variations. The light in the window for the Irish is come, you're welcome. We might have an extra place, some food, the menorah to celebrate, a little bit of oil that managed to make itself burn for a much longer period of time. But it all is related to light. And that's really, really important when it comes to this time of year. So the tree and the lights. And if you think about it, when you decorate a tree, what do you put on first? The lights. But it is the thing you see first, the lights. So think about that. Light coming back to us. And that was the whole intent of lights in the first place. And of course, originally they would have been on candle trees. Candy canes. Now, those of you that know me, I like to explain where things come from. And there are so many iconic images at Christmas time that have a story behind them. Now, the stories that I might tell are one of maybe a half a dozen. There are many different stories to every iconic image that we have. The story of the tree, for example, I could go on for an hour or more, but we don't have time. Candy canes. There was once upon a time a minister in England who was going to do a sermon at Christmas, and he was going to have the kids come up from the Sunday school down below. But he knew that they would be restless. They couldn't just sit on a hard pew for, 40, 45 minutes of fire and brimstone conversation. So he goes into town to a friend of his who makes candy, and he said, "Could you make me a nice big peppermint stick? Just a nice big thick one. I'm going to give it to each of the kids. They can lick at that when they come up into the church, and it'll probably do the trick." And it did. But his friend afterwards said, "You're onto an idea there. Why don't I make them a little bit smaller, put a little hook on the end so you could hang it on your tree or hang it on your fireplace, and I'll use the Christmas colors of red, green, and white." Voila, the candy came. And like a lot of our Christmas traditions that we have in North America, most of them are British based. Because for a while, Christmas was outlawed in a lot of countries in Great Britain and in a lot of countries around the world. And so it was in the late 18th and the beginning of the 19th century that Christmas suddenly started to happen again. Presents and cards. What would Christmas be without presents? Absolutely. It doesn't matter whether it is a tree full of presents or just one present, or even if it's just that perfectly timed phone call. "Hi, how have you been this year? Oh my goodness, I haven't heard from you forever." There, you've just delivered a present. So we have many ways of giving presents, many, many ways of doing that. I personally still like unwrapping and shaking the box. I'm a child when it comes to Christmas. Christmas crackers. Aha. Another gentleman in England who was a very good sculptor used to make little tiny objects out of wood. But he wanted to find a way of delivering those objects at Christmas time with a bit of uniqueness. So he goes to a friend of his in town who makes paper goods, and he said, "Could you make me some kind of a container that I could put these presents of mine in, and then I could get them shipped to people?" And when he went home that day, he thought, okay, I can't wait to see what our friends come up with. He's listening to the fire. He's got his fireplace going, and it's crackling. And he suddenly goes, "Wait a minute, why don't I make this gift a surprise?" So he goes back to his friend. After a few explorations and tries, they come up with the cracker. And of course, you probably have someone in your family that refuses to put the hat on. My grandmother would say, "You don't wear the hat, you don't get the Christmas dinner. You decide." But so the hat's in there, usually a very funny saying or a joke of some sort, and usually a small little tiny plastic car or a ladder or a roll of dice or whatever. But quite remarkable. And of course, you all gather together. You pull the thing inside, and it goes snap. The royal family, by the way, still to this day have their own Christmas crackers made for them specifically. How about that? The Yule log. Wow. Again, as I said, Christmas is not diet month. The Yule log, chocolate, and more chocolate, and fantastic to eat, and really lovely. Goes great with a nice sweet sherry. Would be like having a soccer torta in Vienna with a little sherry. Fantastic. But the Yule log, where does that idea come from? Well, the Vikings. The Vikings in this time of year would go into the forest and cut down the straightest tree they could find, strip off all the branches, open the door of their house, put the tree through the house into the fireplace, light the end of the tree. And all winter long, they would continue to had to keep going. It couldn't burn, couldn't go out. And they would keep moving it in and moving it into the house as it burnt. And it was called a Yule log. And then whatever was left, they would then turn around and begin with that one the next year until it finally burned away. And then they'd start with another one. The Yule log. Fantastic. Isn't that a great idea? Yes. So this is a lot easier, probably tastes a lot better. Let's have a listen to this wonderful piece of music. I'm sure you all know it. Okay. I don't know what happened to it, so I'll just move on. Ah, wonderful. Mulled wine, red wine with cinnamon sticks and lemon and oranges. You put it in a big pot and you put it on the stove and you just let it sim really slowly. And it gives a wonderful, wonderful perfume throughout the entire house. And then when people come to visit, obviously not this year, so you can make a whole pot of it for just you and your immediate household. You serve them a drink, dip in the ladle, and in it goes. Nice and warm and toasty, especially on yesterday and today. This would be a lovely thing to have and just enjoy. And of course, this is called a wassail bowl, which we go a wassailing. It means we go from house to house and the door opens, we go in, we sing a couple of songs, and then they offer us a cup from the wassail bowl. It's important to remember that most of our Christmas songs that we know were originally drinking songs. That's where they came from. In fact, a lot of Christmas songs that you may know in the area that you may have been a young child or whatever, 100 miles away, they sing the same song with the same tune, but different words. And in another 100 miles away, the same tune, but again, different words again. Because these songs were made from drinking songs, because most people, when these songs were originally written, they couldn't read or write, and they definitely couldn't read music. So you made them simple, fa la 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 la, la 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 la. And so the more you imbibed in the tavern, the easier it was to sing the song. So, I mean, how many times have I seen people who don't remember the words, but go, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la. And everybody goes, oh, that's great. That's fantastic. They remember the tune, but they don't know the words. That's where most Christmas songs come from. Now, there are Christmas carols that were written by composers that are specific to the Christmas period, especially Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and so on. But for the most part, they were general community songs sung by folks who were trying to imbibe another kind of spirit, if you like. The candle, the menorah, we already discussed. Well, it's 2021. How do we make light in 2021? We put different lights and we attach them to, guess what? They fly in the air. You get a whole bunch of them together, flying robots, right? And you put them together to make a face of Santa Claus. Isn't that fantastic? And you can do all kinds. If you go online, you'll see all kinds of different images made by these amazing things. It's fantastic. I'd hate to think what the noise was like, but nonetheless, really quite wonderful and a great Santa Claus. But again, it's all about light. Yeah. Well, this has to do with light as well. You probably know this best as mistletoe. But the ancients, again, picked mistletoe because it was green and it was white in the dead of winter, when everything else is black and brown. So they would take this plant and they would put it all over the front of their houses. If you had gone to Rome, ancient Rome with 1 million people living in it, they would have had all their houses covered in this, and holly and ivy as well. And also juniper bushes and so forth, because they were green. Again, let's have that new sun come back. Let's have that heat and warmth. We don't want the gods to think that we don't appreciate it. The other name for this, of course, is poo stick, because this particular plant grows really, really well in manure. And the ancients discovered that from all of the excrement from their animals, and they found that this plant grew much, much better in the manure. And remember, in the early days, people lived with their animals in their houses because the warmth of the animal was a great way to keep oneself warm. Could you imagine what it would have smelled like? The other tradition with this particular plant goes back end of the 18th, beginning of the 19th century. Churches in England would decorate the pews with this particular plant. But one day, a young couple, they had taken the plant and they put it over top of their head and they kissed for every white berry that was on the plant. Well, that ended the tradition of decorating churches with it, but the tradition of placing it over one's head and kissing with the berry that's on it, that has not gone away. Now, you see much less mistletoe, of course, now than you used to, because Billy, politically correct, you need to fill out a 24-page document that says, is it all right if I kiss you under the mistletoe? Here's my background since I was 2. Kind of takes away from the whole idea, doesn't it? Befana. Now, if there are any Italians out there, you probably will recognize this beautiful little old lady, because she is a celebration of December 8th in Italy. Now, where does she come from? So think of her as a replacement Santa Claus. Her story is fascinating. Once there were 3 astronomers, and they left from a place called Constantinople, or Istanbul, as you may know it. And through the desert, they stopped one night, and they stopped at this little old lady's house. And they said, could we stay the night? And she said, absolutely, please. I have some straw. I can feed your camels. Please enjoy. The next day, they said, would you like to come with us? She said, no, I'll stay here. There could be another set of travelers. I want to be here to take care of them. So they got on their camels and they rode off into the sunset. A little later on, she thought, why don't I go with them? I don't have to stay here. So she says, but they all had presents. They had incense, frankincense, and myrrh. Now, those 3 spices were the most high commodity spices in the age. You could buy anything with incense, frankincense, and myrrh. You throw in sugar and salt, and you would have a great bank account. So she gathered up everything she had in her house that she didn't really need anymore. She put it in a big bag, as a big quilt that she had made, got on her broom, and started to fly across the desert. And whenever she would come across a household, she'd drop. Looks like they need a toaster. Well, I'll leave my toaster. This one looks like they need a griddle. I'll leave my griddle. And so on and so on and so on. And if you go to Italy, you'll be able to find many bufanas, large and small, and kids hang them on the tree. They put them in the cupboards. They're really quite lovely. And it's related to the kitchen witch. Every kitchen should somewhere have a kitchen witch. Brings good luck. Not the idea of the witches that you may think of during the burning years. Oh my goodness, a conger. This is a Spanish tradition. One of the things that's important to understand about Christmas for a lot of ancient tribes, and not so ancient, is, remember I talked about light coming back? That relates to fertility. Because if I want the crops to grow, I want to have a sense of bounty. I'm going to hope that that's going to happen. And so, therefore, if I've eaten very well, I'm probably going to have this kind of a dump, aren't I? In Spain, you can buy these characters in many, many sizes. And in Spain, they put them in the creches. And if the youngest child finds it in the creche, they get an extra present, again related to the bounty. This is also a Spanish tradition. It's called a pooping log. So you hollow out the log, you put little tiny presents in it, you cover it with a blanket, and children will beat the log with a stick, and then they will put their hand under the blanket and pull out a present. Again, related to fertility, related to the growth of plants and nature. We think of fertility and we think of, making babies. Fertility for the ancients had to do with growing crops, more animals, the sun coming back, absolutely imperative. And this is a couple of the ways the Spanish would celebrate it. This is a Krampus. A Krampus is an Austrian, I guess you could call him a devil of sorts, although there is no such thing. But remember that the old idea that children could be good or bad, and if you're bad, you don't get presents, and if you're good, you get presents. That tradition, rather bizarre if you think about it, but we don't have time to discuss it today. But the Krampus was meant to frighten little children. Well, look at the face on that little girl. She's like, I challenge you not to give me a present. And the men that play the Krampuses, they may not be around today. I don't know. Depends on political correctness, that awful word. They specialize in being Grandpa. Okay. Another piece of music.
Christmas time is here, happiness and cheer, fun for all that children call their favorite time of year. Snowflakes in the air, carols everywhere, olden times and ancient rhymes of love and dreams to share.
Wow. Indeed, indeed. This is a very, very early Christmas card from Great Britain. Happy Christmas to you, the kindly Robin. Remember, we're about bounty again. If you have, give a little bit. So here's a family, father, mother, and child of robins. And on the left-hand side, robins that look like they could do with a meal or two. So Mr. Robin is putting a nice round red berry in the older robin's hat. And this was part of the celebration of the time of the Victorian age and just a little bit before. Share the bounty that you have. I don't like using the word wealth because wealth has an entirely different connotation altogether. But bounty, that could pertain to anything. And that, I think, is more the idea. And this is an early Christmas card. You write the word to, who's it to, and at the bottom of it, from. Again, a fairly well-off family. Everybody's got a drink in hand, and people a little less well-off on either side. And that's all you had to do, by the way. That was picked up by the post stagecoach, and it would arrive on the person's door that you were sending it to. How that happened, I have no idea. But that's how it used to be. So the Christmas card idea came originally, as I said, with a lot of Christmas traditions from Great Britain. All right. The Ukraine. Wow. Spiders and spider webs. The tradition, again, related to bounty. is you hide a spider or a spider's web in your Christmas tree. You decorate the tree, you get it finished, and then deep inside the tree, you put the spider and the web. And then the youngest child who can search around the tree and find the spider, they get an extra present. Two reasons again. Trees, conifer trees, used to be places that spiders would nest. And you would bring the tree home, and suddenly you had a group of spiders all over your living room. Doesn't happen anymore, but it was perceived as good luck. And so, again, good luck. I was talking to a lady yesterday, and she does exactly the same thing. And she said it's such a wonderful tradition. And now they're selling spiders and spiders' webs like this in various markets just for this reason. Well, now we go to the Czech Republic. All the wonderful single women in Prague on Christmas Eve are going to open the door of their house and over their right shoulder throw a shoe. And when the shoe lands, if the toe is towards them, it means they're going to marry within the year. And if the heel is towards them, try again next year. But again, the shoe representing bounty. In fact, there are some countries, the Dutch countries and the lowland countries, the presents go in the shoes. You put the shoes outside the door, Germany as well. And that's where the presents are located. Because if you have bounty, you can be wearing a pair of shoes. Hard for us to imagine there are people who don't have enough bounty to be able to buy a pair of shoes. So again, it's related to bounty. And then if a young woman is able to get married within the year, she's going to double her bounty. How about that? Wow. Iceland. Whoa. These boys are called the Yule lads. That's their mother on the right-hand side. And that cat is called the Yule cat. Now, there are 12 Yule lads, the 12 days of Christmas, and each one of these lads has a specialty. One guy will lick your pots clean. Another one will lick your plates. Another one will steal your cheese. Another one will steal your meats, and so on and so on. And the cat, very important, to get children to dress properly in Iceland in the winter, the cat will eat you if you don't dress warm. So you can imagine some of the kids here in North America, no scarves, hats, and gloves and boots going off to school. Don't let the Icelandic cat get you, because if you're not dressed properly, the cat will have you. Great tradition, the Yule lads, and they're celebrated all over Iceland. Wonderful. Germany has the pickle, the Christmas pickle. Now, this particular package of the pickle, these are made of glass, but you could have a pickle made of anything except a real pickle. But again, the pickle representing bounty. If you can afford to put a pickle in the tree, then that means that you can afford to not have to eat it and you're not making a salad of some sort. It's in the tree. And again, if the person who finds it receives an extra little present from St. Nick, or whoever wants to give the child a present. I have a lady who's a very good friend of mine, first heard me tell this story about 5 years ago. And since then, she has put a pickle in her Christmas tree. And if the older kids find it, they get a case of 2-4 of beer. And they really look forward to coming over and doing that. Unfortunately, this year, that's not going to happen. But it doesn't mean the traditions go away. It just means we put them on hold until this time next year. Brooms. In Sweden, you clean your house spotless with a broom, and then you hide the broom, because otherwise an old lady will come into your house, get on your broom, fly around, and break all your china. So hide the brooms. Whoa. Images. Before we do that, let's listen.
I'm dreaming of Christmas, just like the ones I used Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
How about that? Wow. Indeed, indeed. Yes. One of the best Christmas songs of the month of December, written by a great Broadway composer who is Jewish. How about that? Now, that doesn't tell you that we're a community, no matter where we're from or what our stripe might be. That's a really great example of it. I believe I started at 10:14. It's now 10:50. I have a feeling my time is up. I leave you with a picture of Bruegel, the elder, and hunters returning in the snow. But I think I might be right on that, but I could be wrong. Thank you very much, gentlemen. If there are any questions, I'm sure I could handle them. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Gary. And thanks, Jim. And especially for those kind words from Kevin. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're open for questions for George. And I just remind you that if you have a question, please raise your hand. Gary Hinley will be looking at the gallery view, and when he spots you.
I see Ken's got his hands up. Ken, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, that was an excellent and well-researched presentation, George. And I just wanted to mention that recently I read that of the 30 top Christmas songs in Canada, written in the 20th century, 20 of those 30 were written in the 1940s and 50s. No holiday songs in the top 30 have been written in the 2000s. And so my question, George, is why do you think our listening seems to be stuck in the past? Is it a question of comfort? Is it a question of nostalgia?
To answer your question, two of those things, comfort and nostalgia. A lot of people of a certain age hate the music from 2000 to now. When they were younger and they were children or they were young parents, that was the music of the 40s and the 50s that everybody was listening to. If you hear that song by Bing Crosby, you can hear every word he sings. You can hear every inflection in his voice. The music in the background is totally secondary because in those days when they recorded music, there was one microphone and he got the microphone. Same with Ella Fitzgerald. Whereas today, it's in a complete mix of both music and words. Those are fundamentally it. Plus, the distractions in the 40s and the 50s were totally different than distractions we have today. So therefore, you're competing against so much more now than you would have in the 40s and the 50s. I talked about a little black television 7 inches wide. I mean, you were lucky if you had one. So those are the primary reasons, but and the age group of the people that remember that music, that's the like the big band era or whatever. It's people who like Bill Haley and the Comets thinking that was rock and roll. Well, rock and roll's come a long way since Bill Haley and the Comets, but it's really important. Those are fundamentally some of the reasons off the top of my head.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. Good question. Thanks, Ken.
I see Stan Burnup's got his hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Stan. No, you're going to have to unmute yourself. Hang on a second. I'll see if I can unmute. We can see your lips moving, Stan.
Okay, hear me now?
Yes, we
Gotcha,
can.
Stan.
I've never been able to figure this out, and I wonder if you can answer this question.
I'll try.
Santa Claus real?
Of course. Absolutely. Do you think he's real? There you go. That's that answer. That's the quickest answer I've had all month. So thank you.
The better question is he Canadian?
The answer to that is he's everything.
Any more questions? I think we're running out of questions. So Jim, do you want to go ahead and take it back, wrap it up?
Yeah, thank George, we want to thank you for this this visual picture of Christmas time, in addition to the pictures that you showed us and the music. It sure brought back a lot of memories for me. I kind of live the music of Christmas for 3 weeks before on my Sirius radio programming, and then I kind of go into some kind of lockdown after Christmas, and I suffer from withdrawal. So thank you for giving us this up before Christmas, and giving us a worldview of it as well.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And thanks for having me.
Okay. We invite you to leave at your leisure.
I will. And a very, very Merry Christmas and a tremendous 2021, which it only can be. And stay safe. And remember, your heart is the most important thing to give somebody else. Bye for now.
Thank you. And the same to you. And remember that this session has been recorded, and it will be uploaded by Bob Lalonde in the next couple of days, and you'll get, all of our members will get a notification of that. As we close this December meeting, I also wish to thank all of those of you who attended today, and especially the Zoom masters who made it possible. On behalf of the executive, I extend to each one of you our very best for the holiday season, and wish you all a healthy new year. The speaker for our next meeting on Thursday, January 21st, will be speaking to us on critical thinking in a post-truth world, a most interesting topic on the day following the swearing in of a new president in the United States. I'm now going to, as we close, I'm going to invite you to stick around for our breakout session.